Hey folks, you're here. A super quick one today, but a really exciting one. Now you might have heard that VS Code finally shipped MCP support. So they had some integration before where you could directly hook into their LLM, so basically Copilot. And we blogged about how we integrated Nx into the Copilot APIs to provide you more rich experience when you use them in an Nx Monorepo. Now finally they adopted the MCP protocol, and so we adjusted our cursor-based MCP so that it works for all MCP clients, also with Copilot. So first of all, how do you get the MCP server configured and installed? Now, if you have Nx console already configured and installed in your VS Code as an extension, you can find it obviously on the marketplace and just search for that there. Then you will get a notification that pops up in your VS Code editor to enable the MCP server. And so here you can see this improved Copilot agent with Nx specific context. You can say yes, and this will automatically configure the Nx MCP into the MCP JSON in the VS Code folder. Now, if you have missed the notification for some reason, you can always just type configure MCP server, and that will be there if you haven't already installed it. So you can just hit that one and install it directly manually at the later point. Now, once you have this installed, you can just click start here. VS Code will also automatically run it whenever you request a tool from the Nx MCP to assist you during the interaction with the LLM. So you don't have to worry about that one. But with that open and that running, you now should have the Nx MCP server installed as well. Now here you can see I have already one from GitHub. And if I scroll down, you can see the Nx MCP with the different tools that we expose right now at the moment of recording this video to the LLM. So you can see the description here. You can also find this on the docs to figure out what exactly these different tools can do for you. But before we go ahead, why do you even need an Nx MCP when you work in an Nx repo? Now, you don't obviously need it necessarily, but it will help and improve your life when you work in a monorepo. So the main idea here is that VS Code and Copilot and other LLMs can already pick up a lot of information from the context in a monorepo. The monorepo actually is a great place because it has a lot of data, and LLMs are data hungry because the more data and context you feed to them, the better they can answer your question and assist you when you do refactorings or changes in your code base. Now, the thing is though, if your code base grows, there's a lot of files to analyze. Like you can try to infer the information from a package JSON, from files that you expose, or from code owners' files, etc. But Nx already has that data because in order to optimize your monorepo, we basically, in the background, scrape your repo and understand how these different projects relate to each other. So there's a project graph JSON, just to pick one example, that has a lot of information about tags you have, about the project names, and how they relate to other projects in your workspace. And so that's also something that, for instance, can be visualized with the Nx graph. So what we do is basically just elaborate that information, make it available to the LLM such that it can call into our MCP, get the information much faster, rather than analyzing and trying to figure out where things are connected. So let's see this in action. So for instance, this workspace, I have already neatly organized it into the order subdomain and product subdomain, which already gives some good information to the LLM itself. But I can also say something like, use the provided Nx MCP tools to figure out which other projects are related to the data access order project. And so here, for instance, this is just to show what exactly happens and how the Copilot extension, how Copilot can actually figure out these relationships. So you can see it calls into the Nx workspace, which has information about project relationships. And now it can pick up direct dependencies as well as upstream dependencies itself. You can see it even goes ahead and use the visualize graph tool to show off exactly what this looks like at the visual from a visual perspective. So you can see the data access order that we asked about. You can see how the shop utils is a direct dependency of that one, but also the upstream products that are dependent on it. So I can also go and generate new projects. And the code generation, even though LLMs can do that out of the box, basically on their own, it is kind of like handy to have a mix between predictable code generation, which is something like Nx generators provide, which could even be your custom local generators actually, invoked by the LLM, which then tries to apply fixes on top of it. So as an example for that, we could say something like, create a new feature library into the folder packages/orders/feed-cancel-order folder, and use the same name, feed-cancel-order, It should be a React library, so you can leverage some of the generators for that, and also link it to the data access order projects. Don't use any bundler. Also, don't generate any components. Just use whatever the generator provides to you. What I'm showing here is how the Copilot calls into the Nx generators schema to figure out what generator is available to create exactly this request, to create a React library, for instance. And here you can see the balance between the LLM running a predictable code scaffolding approach, which here you can see it uses the React library generator with this folder, no bundler, no component. So this looks good. And so it goes and runs that and creates that here in this orders folder. And so you can see this is a very predictable output because this is what the Nx plugins provide, but it could also be your local generator that you have set up. And so you can then follow up and say something like connected to the data access order package. And so now you can see how it links it. It also adds tags in here because this is an actual feature library and it figured out other projects here have tags associated. So to properly show that off as well. Our MCP also exposes the docs because we all know sometimes LLMs tend to hallucinate when they don't actually know how to proceed or they use outdated information based on when they have been trained. So we also expose directly the Nx docs, which allows you to do things like whenever I run the dev command, please add a new task pipeline in the Nx JSON that automatically runs the build of all downstream projects beforehand. You can use the Nx docs to make sure to see how to configure a task pipeline with Nx. And so now you can see it runs the Nx docs to figure out basically how to define such a task pipeline. And then it goes to the Nx JSON. So let's jump in here. We have here the target defaults. So it ideally goes and updates the target defaults with that. And exactly, you can now see it added a new dev target in here that depends on build. So meaning whenever I run my dev task on my Vite server, it would automatically build all downstream projects. And so this was just a super quick demo of some of the capabilities our MCP server exports right now to your LLM, whether that is Cursor or now also Copilot with the latest MCP and agentic mode support. Now, this is not just like trying to be fancy about LLMs, etc., but like this literally means like having more precise commands because the LLM has more information which can be used for onboarding, but also importantly, the LLM now don't think anymore at a file level, but it gets all that information about the projects and the relationships, etc. So it can start thinking more architecturally, so at a more architectural level. And we have some really cool features already in the planning. Actually, if you're curious about it, definitely subscribe to this channel because we might actually already drop one this week about something we're working on right now. So if you want to try this out, go to our docs, search for Nx Console, or just go to the VS Code Marketplace, install Nx Console, and you should get the notification to install MCP, so you can start playing around with it. So hope you like this one. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.